Чувства, которые мы испытываем сегодня, и я, и мои коллеги-музыканты, все, кто организовал этот концерт. В музыке, которая прозвучит сегодня, наша душевная боль, негодование, протест, варварство и насилие.
Music that you will hear today, you hear our pain and our memory, and our pain from those who destroyed memorial sites and our heritage. But there's also great hope in this music. This concert in the war-torn Palmyra is our appeal for peace and concord. It is our appeal to the entire world to join forces in the fight against terrorism.
I was able to imagine that I will perform here in Palmyra in this ancient amphitheater. It's very difficult to speak about emotions we feel, we musicians. We protest against barbarians who destroyed wonderful monuments of world's culture. We protest against the executions of people here on this great stage. Our concert in Palmyra is our appeal for everyone to come to peace and unity, and all the people in the world to unite and work against this evil, against the terrorism. Сейчас я хотел бы передать слово президенту Российской Федерации Владимиру Владимировичу Путину.
And now I would like to give the floor to the President of the Russian Federation, Mr. Vladimir Putin. Dear representatives of the government of the Syrian Arab Republic, esteemed Major Georgiev, dear musicians of the St. Petersburg Mariinsky Theater Orchestra, dear envoys of UNESCO, members of the Academia, dear residents of Palmyra, thank you all for this incredible humanitarian event, the concert in the newly liberated Palmyra, freed from terrorists. I regard it as a sign of gratitude, memory and hope. Gratitude to everyone who has been fighting terrorism, sacrificing everything, including their lives. Of the memory of all the victims of terror, regardless of the time and place of those crimes against humanity. And of course, our hope not only for Palmyra to resurge as a historic relic, but also for our entire civilization to rid itself from this terrible evil, international terrorism. To that end, it is necessary that we take every victory and every success in this fight against terrorism as our common victory. And every victim of terrorism should be regarded everywhere as everyone's personal loss and everyone's personal pain. Only this kind of attitude to this evil would enable us to gain a decisive and final victory against terrorism. I know that today's event entails great inconveniences and also great dangers for all of its participants. It is the dangers of being inside a war-torn country, a country that is at war, in close proximity to places where there is still fighting and hostilities. I know this demands a lot of strength and a lot of courage from each and every one of you. And I would like to thank you all for this. Good luck. And now the floor is yours, Major.
Distinguished representatives of the government of the Syrian Arab Republic, distinguished Maestro Georgiev, the musicians of the St. Petersburg Mariinsky Theater, the performers, the ambassadors of the UNESCO, scientists and the citizens of Palmyra. We thank you for this humanitarian action that we are seeing today, this concert in the liberated Palmyra. Today, we thank you because this gives us memory and hope and the sense of gratitude. The gratitude to all those who have fought terrorism and the memory for all the victims that...
All right, now we're going to be dipping in. It's Kevin Owen and Ewan O'Neill here. We're going to be dipping in, Ewan, aren't we, into this concert? Sorry about that, but it's because some of the addresses being given to the crowds there, you can see some of the armed forces watching as well, being simultaneously translated into Arabic as well. So it's being repeated. That's why we're going to be talking over that. But you heard what President Putin had to say, congratulating everyone on liberating Palmyra, talking about a new start ahead. There, Gurgiev as well gave a brief introduction. He's going to be a very busy man very shortly. We're expecting about an hour's worth of concert to come up.
A lot of good music coming up.
Yeah, indeed. And it's been talked about lifting this place from a place of death and destruction to harmony and peace. Well, time will tell on that because we'll be listening in. So it's a little bit fluid at the moment. We're not quite sure when we're going back to hearing what everybody wants to hear. The orchestra firing up, the St. Petersburg Mariinsky Theatre Orchestra firing up. They're extremely good, aren't they, Ewan? They should be happening any time soon, I think.
One of the issues I think it needs to be drawn here is where the concert is taking place. It's taking place at a Roman amphitheatre in Palmyra, which was liberated 2 months ago by the Syrian Arab army with help from Russian airstrikes as well. The area, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's so important in terms of Syria getting back on its feet as well. After 5 years of war, it's going to be places like this, which are the economic hub, trying to get the tourists back, trying to get some economic foothold back in the country as it needs to be rebuilt after so many people have died, so many areas have been destroyed by this civil war as well. The actual site, just reading parts of it here, it's really so interesting, but I have to admit I did not know much about Palmyra before the war broke out, but just reading about some of the aspects of the city, it's quite incredible. It's really the crossroads of east and west in that region. Lots of influences, Greco-Roman areas, as you can maybe make out here by some of the picture. The temples, the Arc of Triumph, the Temple of Bel, these are priceless artifacts, ruins that really people wanted to see. Have they been destroyed by ISIL, or are they actually left there?
Well, it's been described, this place, by the Directorate General of Antiquities and Museums of UNESCO, no less, as Palmyra, a legacy of all civilization, not just a legacy of Syria. It's a legacy of all mankind, and what is happening in Syria will determine the fate of civilization itself. That's what the Directorate General of Antiquities and Museums had to say about this space, this place, so special as it is. And as I said, we did a couple of months ago, just as this place was liberated with the help of Russia. I spoke personally to the head of Syrian Antiquities, who I have to say I thought would be extremely downbeat. I thought would be extremely pessimistic. Yes, the guy was heartbroken about some of the stuff he saw there. But to look on the bright side, as we're trying to do today with this forthcoming concert any minute, he was looking at the positives, and he was pretty confident at the time that this place could be restored. But as you were saying just now, Ewan, interesting, this dilemma that historians often have, not that you come across this that often. Where do you start? Do you start to rebuild, or do you try and just seal the place in time as it is at the moment? It's a big problem. Anyway, before we talk about that, I can tell you the concert is about to begin. There's Mr. Gurgiev. Hopefully the band will strike up shortly. Let's listen in and enjoy.
Of the Tchaikovsky contest, who will perform the famous Chaconne by Johann Sebastian Bach. This is a work that symbolizes the greatness of the human spirit. You will also hear Sergei Roldugin, cello, who will perform Quadrille by Rodion Shchedrin. It is a more optimistic creation. And finally, there will be a classical symphony by Sergei Prokofiev, the greatest Russian composer. This is a work that is full of optimism and admiration for the classical works of the high art. And that is something we see around us here in Palmyra. And now I would like to invite Mr. Pavel Milyukov on stage.
And we will have Chaconna of Johann Sebastian Bach, played by Pavel Milyukov, a winner of Tchaikovsky International Competition. This piece is expressing greatness of human spirit, and I think it is appropriate to play it today here. Also, Sergei Roldugin, the cellist, will play a quadrille of a great Russian composer, Rodion Shchedrin, and finally we will play classical symphony of Sergei Prokofiev. This symphony is written as a homage to great masters of the past. Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, that was written by a Russian composer, and it's a lot of optimism and hope in this piece. I hope you enjoy this concert.
الآن أقدم إلى انتباهكم عدة المحتويات الموسيقية، وأولا سيكون على هذا المبنى حائز لجائزة تشايكوفسكي سيد بافل ميلوكوف، وكذلك سيكون فنان الشعب لروسيا الاتحادية سيرجي رالدوغين مع رقصة رباعية بمؤلف المشهور لروسيا الاتحادية روديون شيدرين، وكذلك سنقدم إليكم السيمفونيا رقم 1 بمؤلف بروكوفيف، وكذلك سنقدم عدة المحتويات والمؤلفات بمؤلفين المشهورين مثل موزارت وتشايكوفسكي وباخ، وأظن أنت ستكون مرتاح بشأن هذا التقديم. شكرا.
You're watching RT International and watching a concert that we're relaying to you from Palmyra. It's called Pray for Palmyra. Renowned conductor Valery Gergiev is there. What you were just listening to there is a piece called Chacona in D minor. Some regard that piece as the greatest solo violin ever, depending on your point of view. Let's go to Paula Sleer. She's at that amphitheatre, beautiful place still, that's survived so much turmoil of late. Paula, hi there. As I've been explaining to our viewers, the concert's been relayed in some little delay, so where you are actually at the moment, it is just wrapped up. We've still got to show our viewers the bulk of it. Give us a bit of the feeling of it, though, being there firsthand. You get a sense of the immensity of the power of it just watching in, but you're there. Tell us what it felt like.
Well, it certainly is very emotional being here among the ancient ruins of Palmyra. Just a short time ago, the pictures coming out were those of death and destruction of Islamic State. The sounds were those of gunfire. And here today, those sounds have been replaced with the sounds of classical music. The concert was opened by the renowned Russian conductor Valery Gergiev, and he expressed a hope that peace and prosperity would again return to this part of the world. And that hope was reiterated by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who was broadcast live giving a message from Moscow, and that was met with loud applause. Speaking to some of the people here, as one person put it, we feel as if the soul has been brought back to Palmyra. That is what he told me. Now, among the audience were Russian soldiers, Syrian soldiers, there were ordinary civilians, a large number of school children, as well as an international delegation from UNESCO. And I was speaking to some of those UNESCO members. They say that they think it will take between 5 to 7 years for these ruins to be restored. They said that the discussions underway are the question as to whether or not to conserve the sites in the state that they're in or completely restore them, because some of these sites have been so badly damaged that there's simply nothing. Having said that, they said that they believe that Islamic State had conducted a systematic effort to completely destroy Palmyra, and if they hadn't been stopped, we would be seeing so much less than what we're seeing here today. Now, there is a conference that will take place at the beginning of next month in Berlin, and the topic of that conference is Syria's World Heritage Sites. So we'll know at that stage a lot better and a lot more as to how this part of the world will be restored and conserved. As you enter the city of Palmyra, what is particularly noticeable is that house after house has either been completely destroyed or partially destroyed by Islamic State, and that is the part of Palmyra that Russian soldiers are now focusing their demining efforts on. There's some 560 hectares that still need to be demined, and every so often you hear here a loud explosion as that demining effort gets underway. But where I'm standing here inside the ruins, the area has been cleared of explosives, and that is why the concert was able to go ahead today. The concert is also in memory of Ahmed Assad. You might be familiar with the name. He was the local resident of Palmyra who was an archaeologist. He lived here and he died trying to save these ruins. The concert also remembers the so-called Russian Rambo, Alexander Prohovenko, who called on himself friendly fire to try and save what he could here in Palmyra. So people here very, very emotional, remembering those two people and also the others who died when Islamic State occupied this part of the world. The concert was entitled Pray for Palmyra, Music Revives Ancient Ruins, and certainly that is what we've witnessed here today. Music reviving the ancient ruins, the hugely symbolic concert that shows us that death and destruction will never win, that death and destruction have been replaced and will always be replaced with culture, history and civilization.
Yeah, Paul, that's very much the hope of renowned Russian conductor Valery Gergiev. We're about to head into the second part of the concert. Thank you for now. We wish you well. It's Kevin Owen, Ewan O'Neill in the studio, just seeing you through the various pieces as they come up. More treats for the ears in a second. But, you know, Ewan, Paula was mentioning just then Khaled al-Assad, the keeper of the treasures there for so many years.
Yeah, that's one part of the remembrance here, the gatekeeper of the city who was tortured, he was beheaded, as Paula was saying, but he did not give any information about that. Also something else,
as you're watching that music, and I'd forgotten about it, but it really almost brings a tear to your eye. We're watching that beautiful piece just now. You said, you know, where that's happening, this happened.
Yeah, where the Roman amphitheatre, where the concert took place, is where 20 to 25 people, when the city was taken over by ISIL, were put on their knees in a semicircle and shot in the head by teenage jihadists. It was a propagandist video by ISIL to say, look, what we can do, we've got children, we'll do this for what we believe in. It was a horrific act. The pictures were not sent around the world because people would not show them, but those echoes of the tragedy did, of course. That amount of people just shot to make a point about this is not our religion, we do not believe in pagan idolatries, etc. It was a horrific act.
Ewan, let's try and get a bit more of the positive energy from this place. It's being introduced now again by this concert and reintroduced back there after the horrors of late. The concert continues. Just to remind you, this concert is called Pray for Palmyra, and the world-famous conductor Valery Gergiev is conducting there. Here we go into the second part of it. Enjoy. If you just joined us, a reminder, you're watching a splendid concert from Palmyra. It's called Pray for Palmyra. That powerful piece you just heard is the quadrille from the opera Not Love Alone by the Russian composer Rodion Shredrin. And it's interesting, it's Kevin Owen, Ewan O'Neill here, just taking you through till the next piece starts. Nice to see people gathered together in all of their and splendour of their surroundings, rather than the fear, the horror that has been witnessed by that place unit in the last year or so.
Well, as you mentioned, the name of this concert is the Play for Palmyra. Music revives ancient remains, and that's what it's about now, reconstruction in such a area which had so much death, etc. And this is one of the points now. We're just into our next piece of music you're about to hear. Let's just go live, or go to the piece indeed, and hear the music.
If you just tuned to us, this is RT International. It's 7 p.m. here in Moscow now. You've been watching a concert at Palmyra. It's been called Pray for Palmyra. World-famous conductor Valery Gergiev leading that concert. Beautiful, uplifting music. You can see how much the crowd applauding there, appreciating what's been done. Over the past year, so many horrors there at this ancient UNESCO site. To commemorate those who lost their lives liberating that city from IS, and back to the tremendous efforts needed to restore Palmyra's ruined architectural gems. As we've been watching that, it's Kevin Owen, Ewan O'Neill with you as we come to the end of that concert now. Splendid it was as the sun shone down, and do you know who'd be, maybe, looking down at that? Khaled al-Assad, that guy that served that city and its architecture with such dedication for 40 years.
Khaled Assad was the gatekeeper of Palmyra. He was taken hostage, he was tortured, and he was beheaded. He was 81 years of age, Kevin, as well. He was tortured for the secrets of the city, where the priceless relics were hidden, because just before ISIL had come in, there was a rush to hide these artifacts so that the terrorists would not get their hands on them. A lot were taken to Damascus, but of course, as we're seeing now pictures of the city, so many relics are huge, so they could not obviously be taken. But Khaled Assad, he'll be looking down on this, won't he, just thinking that his death was not in vain, because this is the thing now. There is remembrance on one side, but also the next issue now is reconstruction of a city that was open to thousands and thousands of tourists before the civil war broke out. They're hoping that this will now have a positive effect on the city and the country as a whole.
And as we were saying, the big dilemma now, of course, for everyone involved here, from the museums, from the whole side of this, how do they preserve this for the future? Do they try and get back what was ruined back to what it was before? Does it then become a pastiche of itself, or do they kind of seal it in time?
This is the huge debate. UNESCO, because this is a World Heritage Site, let's not forget, UNESCO travelled there last month. There was a huge operation by Russian forces and also the Syrian army to demine the area, because ISIL had left lots of bombs on these priceless relics. So as you say, the question is now, because this is where East meets West. It's civilization at its finest in that area. So there are relics here that there's nowhere else in the world, the significance of them. Do you now rebuild a city with those at the forefront, or do you actually keep what's left in a museum and then rebuild in a modern way? This is just one of the many questions that has to be asked over Syria's future.
Ewan, thank you for now. We know you're picking up the news again here in the studio just about an hour's time. I'll take over. Good concert, wasn't it?
It was great. Great watching.
A concert to remember all those who perished, gave their lives to rid that place of ISIL, and to remember everyone who has died thus far in this 5-year war in Syria. Now,